Hello, Women Who Code. I'm Joey Rosenberg, Chief Product Officer here at Women Who Code. We are so excited to be joined with a very special guest who is going to share her story with our community. Please help me welcome Anusha Rutnam. She is the technical support engineer for Adyen, and she's here to talk tech. She's here to talk all things Women Who Code. Welcome, Anusha.
Hey Joey, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be chatting with you today. I've heard just a tiny snippet of your story, and I know that our community is going to benefit greatly from hearing about your experience. I'd love for you to just tell Women Who Code a little bit about who you are and your background and what you do.
Anusha Rutnam, I live in Sydney. I work for a payments company called Adyen. My role is called technical support engineer. That means it's somewhat customer facing, kind of a bridge between the devs and the people who give us money, I guess. It's a really interesting role. I only got into tech in 2017. So what is that now? 4 years ago. I came to it sort of in a sort of way about way. I always felt like I was quite good at troubleshooting and had worked office roles where I used Excel spreadsheets in a way that was useful for companies. And so I did a boot camp at a place called GA. And yeah, I was really fortunate enough to get a job my first week out and worked for a year as a web developer, and then moved into tech support, which I really felt is my passion. I love what I do, and I feel like I bring a lot to the role.
For people thinking about moving into a technical support engineering role, can you describe kind of what is your day-to-day, or what are the things that you think are most valuable that you bring to that space?
I think that interpreting the sort of problems people bring to the table is quite important, and asking the right questions. Quite often we get these questions that are something along the lines of X isn't working, and you have to perhaps think outside of the box, like look at the internal pages we have on this merchant, look into a payment method they've just activated, try and figure out what they're talking about. And if you can't figure it out, then perhaps one has to ask, can you tell me more about what's not working? In what way is it not working? And then maybe dig in a little bit more, like guide them to find a console error or something like that.
You shared with me earlier that documentation is really important in this process. What role does that play, and how does one even go about making really good documentation?
I love good docs, and I think it came, for me, it's come from a place of finding sort of API requests and understanding the concept of an API difficult when I first entered tech. And I just loved it when any technical documentation included examples. So I feel like I bring to the table as a tech support person who contributes to docs, I bring to the table the fact that, like, let's do a for dummies guide that will help someone like me. Yeah, just like simple examples, I think are very important.
One thing I run into working in product is you can have the best documentation in the world, but getting people to use it and find it and access and organize it in a way that takes the whole team on the journey, and customers in some cases when it's public facing documentation can be really tricky. Do you have any advice for how to get people on the same page?
Yeah, I got to admit, I've had a few snarky tickets where I'm like, have you read the documentation hyperlink? But that's on me. I think a bit of empathy is probably called for there. But also, if people aren't finding it, then that's a problem with the documentation as well. It's if you're searching for something on the site and it doesn't come up in the search results, that's on the company.
What platforms and tools do you prefer to use? Do you have it all housed in your site, or do you use other spaces to document wikis and things like that?
Product called Hub. It's fine. Previously, I've been at other companies where it was a similar thing, like the indexing on search queries was very odd. And so it was very hard to find results on sort of whatever query you were trying to look into. Actually, I think it really needs to be improved on. Internal documentation feels quite essential to all tech support. And I'm not sure that that problem has been solved.
Do you think that's pretty common across the industry, working
Hell
with
yeah.
different teams? Yeah, I know I've experienced it a lot. I'm guilty of it, and I've experienced it working with other people. So I'm always trying to improve documentation, and how-tos, and just to get all of that information out of our brains and onto a place where people can use.
Yeah, it's so essential, but also I understand why, like, you don't want to have to think about the solution and then also have to write it down, right? Except I do.
That's what
I,
makes you great at
I
your job, right?
no, just that one little bit. I'm always like, oh, could you write a note on this ticket? How you solve this?
Oh, that's a great pro tip for people. And do you find that people respond to that pretty easily?
Uh yes, if you leave a few emoji, like a smiley face, not a ending the sentence with please sort of vibe.
Okay. What do you think is different? That's fascinating about human behavior to me. What do you think is different between saying please and leaving an emoji?
It doesn't feel like a judgment. It's more like fun thing for next time.
Yeah, that's a great pro tip.
I
That will
don't
get
know. I didn't
amplified.
love having to do it, but it it feels a little gentler.
Cool. You mentioned that you transitioned from web dev to technical support engineer. Tell us a little bit about what that transition was like. What was that road like?
Yeah, so I did a boot camp course, um, a web dev 3-month boot camp course, and then got was super fortunate, got a job about a week out from that, um, in a small startup, and met people who were amazing and who will have lifelong friendships with. But um, at the same time, because it was such a small engineering team, I didn't have the support that I personally needed. Just understanding the code base, understanding code full stop. Like, as I say, it was a bootcamp course and I probably needed a bit more nurturing. Um, so after a year of that, I was a bit burnt out just because I think most people, a lot of people, especially women, really take a lot of their worth from contributing in a professional place.
What steps did that lead you to take when you were feeling burnt out? What did that look like for you with your career map?
The next time I applied for a job, I mean, that time with post bootcamp course, I was just like, any job, any job. But the next time I applied for a job, I specifically said, what is the mentorship profile you have? Will I be left on my own? And like, there are so many job opportunities out there where they ask for independent workers who can learn on their own, and like I wouldn't apply for those, and I think it's fine, and I so applaud the people who do.
It sounds like to me you've really kind of owned and come into your power around what you value in a workplace and from a learning perspective. And I think that's something that a lot of our members can really relate to, feeling kind of stuck and unsupported and not knowing how to create something different for themselves. How do you do that? How do you get to the point where you say, actually, this is what I need and won't settle for something else?
I should say, like, I mentioned at the job at the startup, I made friends I'll have for life. They were my colleagues in the engineering team. They just literally didn't have time to help me. So I guess my advice is, if you're lucky enough to pick the workplace you're in, if you feel like you need more support, ask for it. And that's a luxury, a huge luxury, and I'm lucky to have had it. But don't feel like you have to be, like, what's that stupid term, 10x?
Yeah.
Ugh. Don't feel like you have to be some gun working 25 hours a day. Web developer, find your niche, because now I know I'm very good at my job and I'm contributing. God, that means everything to me.
What does it feel like? So when you say it's everything, what does it feel like to get up every day and have a job that you love and you're doing a good job at, and you are making a contribution? What's that day feel like?
It makes it, I guess I don't find my work, a lot of my work is, I think, objectively boring, and I find it so exciting. There is so much like stat work. I find a log line and I'm like, yes. And I'm so psyched for myself. I will literally like high five myself during the day. That's what it means to me, like little wins.
That's amazing. I want that day every day. That sounds fantastic. You shared with me that you took a break at some point before you got to this space where you felt like you were really having that good fit. And that's really common. We hear from our members often that they're thinking about leaving the industry. And in fact, there's a lot of data around about half of women leave by the 10-year mark just because they don't feel like they belong. If someone's listening to this right now and thinking, is this the place for me? What would you say to them?
I would say it's getting better, but at the same time, I very much acknowledge and wouldn't discount their experiences. It's so unfair the way this industry treats women. I think we can make it better. I think men have the responsibility to make it better. but I yeah, basically just wouldn't discount the fact that it's so hard.
And what are some signals that a company, thinking about your own company working at Adyen, what are some signals that a company might be doing it better or is working towards making it better? What are some things that that people can look out for when they're considering where to work?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if I should say, like, I use Glassdoor, and that's how I found this current gig. And I read through every single review there was. Um, at this place, this wasn't when I was looking for it, but at Adyen, there is the most intensely charismatic D&I team. I have no idea how like a payments company has assembled such a charismatic group of people. It doesn't make any sense. But like who are clearly not just ticking a box there. They There was a Pride Week festival a couple of weeks ago, and it was really quite wonderful. And yeah, as I say, not ticking a box. I was thinking a lot generally about this before the interview, and I wish this industry was a bit better.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's what our whole community is about, right? Is asking, is demanding something better for women and for more women and for more diverse women. So I think you are not alone in thinking
Mm.
that. I think you are probably representing what a lot of our members feel, and um, I think it can be quite good to hear your voice reflected out there. In terms of resources, so you've mentioned a boot camp that you took and mentoring. What other resources would you recommend for technologists who are building their career?
Oh, especially for women, ask questions of other women. I have just recently started getting questions on LinkedIn about jobs, about how to apply for jobs. And I was so G'd up, amped for that. It's so exciting. And it's not like anyone owes you their time, but I think there's a lot of women in the industry who want to help. So yeah, it's a funny thing. I would never have asked a question out of the blue back when I was just starting, looking for a job in 2017, but I wish I had, and I hope present me, I know present me would answer.
That's amazing. I hear so many women say they don't want to ask questions. Why do we do that? Where do we get stuck? What happens there?
Some shame thing, like, is it a coupling with imposter syndrome, like, which is, I'm so scared to ask questions. It's a big thing I've tried to talk about in Adyen. Um, I think publicly asking questions is so important, and not just because people need to know the answer, like everyone does, but just to show that not everyone is certain of like the knowledge.
Yeah. Um, so what I'm hearing is what I'm learning from you today is good documentation is everything. Ask questions. You belong, and if you're fortunate enough to find a supportive workplace, go for it and honor that space that you're in. Is there anything else that you want our community to know? Anything else you want to share about your career or who you are that you think might help someone?
I have one very specific technical thought that I'd love to share.
Yeah.
I When I was first starting coding, I did a lot of exercises on browser-based, uh, like CodePen, JS Fiddle sort of sites, and I was so dispirited when I then tried to build my own website. And I was like, where the fuck do I start? I would say try when you're just starting, do both. Like start from scratch. Don't forget that when you're using a browser-based JavaScript tools, do try and do it from scratch.
Awesome. I think that's a great tip. I have a question for you that since you're talking about where to start, question we get all the time when someone has a great idea and they're trying to build something is, do I start with a web app, a mobile app? Where do I go first?
Web app, of course, web app. Mobile apps are so goddamn hard.
Web app all the way. Okay.
Have you seen that meme about Xcode? Have you seen the movie Interstellar? There's a scene where Matthew McConaughey says that little maneuver just cost us 50 years, but someone's interspersed it with an Xcode opening image. So it's just like clicking on Xcode literally costs you 50 years.
That's amazing. I'm gonna have to go find this. Awesome.
No, mobile apps are dreadful.
Thank you for your candor. Also, thank you for sharing your story with us today. I've loved chatting with you today, and I think our community will love hearing from you.